Perfect. We will bring this meeting to order at 7 p.m. Can we have an adoption of the agenda, please?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Candace. Oh my gosh.
Meister.
Meister. Do you like that? I'm really off to a good start. Regular meetings for March 28th. Did everyone have a chance to review those minutes? Looking for an adoption.
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes from March 28th as presented.
Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to adopt the March 28th, 2022 minutes as presented.
All in favor? Yes. Moving on to public hearing bylaw 1737, road closure bylaw. We will open the floor to public hearing. Is there any, Abe?
Sure. So on March 14th, at the regular council meeting, council approved a motion for first reading of the road closure bylaw. The notice of the public hearing for the bylaw was issued circulated in the local press, and the utility companies were contacted regarding the public hearing, and particularly regarding the bylaw. The road closure in question is on the east of the hospital. The hospital is looking to obtain that piece of property, and so in order for us to proceed with that, we have to close this road, this piece of property, as it was part of the town's road plan. We haven't had any concerns or comments from the public or from the utilities company in regard to this.
Any thoughts or comments? I guess we can go ahead and close this public hearing at 7:02 p.m. and move on to delegations. Chinook Arch Regional Library System. Robin. Sorry. No, not doing it. Abe. I'll leave that to you, Abe.
It's heifer like the cow.
Okay, I didn't want to,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I didn't want to.
Actually, if you go back far enough in my family, at one point it was spelled that way, and somebody must have just gotten tired of the ribbing or something like that and changed it. So, anyway.
Thank you.
Yes.
Welcome.
Well, thank you for your time this evening. I'm Robin Heffer from Chinook Arch Regional Library System, which is a regional library service organization of which you are a member. And so typically after every municipal election, we come out and we do a presentation to our member councils just to update you on what we've been doing over the last 4 years or so, and also for any new members of council, just to let you know what Chinook Arch is and how we fit into your local library service. I'm joined for moral support by Tony Hamblin, who I think are you the chair of the local? So Tony chairs your local library board. She's also your appointee to the Chinook Arch board. And also Jay Sawaski is your local librarian. So they've come out tonight as well. So if you have any questions about your local library, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer as well. And not to put them on the spot or anything. If you have any questions, feel free to flag me down. It shouldn't take more than 10 minutes or so to get through this, but I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have. And I've given you a handout there. It contains a copy of this presentation as well as our highlights from 2021. If you want more information about some of the things I'm mentioning, like our plan of service, some of our policies, our reports and whatnot, they're all available on the Chinook Arch website at chinookarch.ca, along with our audited financial statements. You're welcome to take a look at those at any time if you like, just under the About Us tab. So what is Chinook Arch? As I mentioned, we're a member-driven public library service organization. We are legally speaking a public library, just like your local library board, and we are governed by the Libraries Act and regulation. Chinook Arch is one of 7 library systems in the province, and we're the youngest one. So in the late 80s, I guess in early 90s, this corner of the province, you can kind of see the map there. Basically, the southwestern corner of the province was the only area that didn't have regional library service, and so there were a number of library boards that decided to get together and make that happen. So they struck a steering committee and did a needs assessment and drafted an agreement. And in 1992, 22 councils signed on to that agreement, and the system came into being. And since then, we've grown to 41 member municipalities and 1 school authority. So At this point, every municipal member that can potentially join Shinnecock has joined. So we were happy to welcome Nobleford just at the end of 2021, and that completed the system, which is great. And essentially, Shinnecock is the creation of municipalities. It's a wonderful example of intermunicipal collaboration, you know, before it was cool or before it was mandated. It's just a wonderful, because it's voluntary and it's sort of grassroots, you know, no one's forcing anyone to join the library system. It's really, it's just, you know, many municipalities have seen the business case for joining a system and supporting their local library service. So as I mentioned, we have the system agreement that lays out the broad roles of Shinnecock and your local library board, so who's responsible for what. Because it's a very general document, it is supplemented periodically by a plan of service, which kind of puts a little more detail to those broad roles. So that's always preceded by a needs assessment process, which we're currently in the midst of right now. So talking to member libraries, member library boards, our staff, and also our member municipalities about, mostly through the Shinnecock Library Board, about what it is you would like to see from your local library service as supported by the regional library system. We do everything in 4-year cycles because it just coincides with municipal election cycle. We're very closely tied to municipal politics. Most of our appointees are elected officials and so are from our member councils. There's nothing to say that a council must appoint a councillor, but as in the case, obviously, you've got your local board chair that is appointed to our board, and hopefully there's a mechanism for her to report back to you as well. But yeah, so our current plan of service, we're in the last year. We're in the process of developing a new plan of service that'll be 2023 through 2026. Our funding, so our annual budget is about $4 million a year, and hopefully you can sort of see on that chart there. So the big red chunk is our biggest chunk of funding, and that's our municipal member fees. So we charge a per capita levy to member municipalities. At this point, it's $7.76 per capita, and that's actually we reduced it a couple of years ago as the pandemic was hitting. We just decided to unilaterally reduce our member levy, knowing that municipalities were having a hard time, and we kept it flat for 2022 as well. So that's the biggest source of revenue. The next biggest source is the library boards. So the library boards also pay a fee, and that is just in recognition of the fact that Shinnecock takes on some responsibility or some tasks that would normally be done by your local library board or library staff. The other big chunk is the purple section, and that is a provincial operating grant. So that's one of the main reasons for forming a library system, is it actually brings in an extra layer of granting from the province. So by creating the system, there's a per capita grant from the province of $4.55, if I'm correct. Anyway, it works out to about $1 million that comes into this region to support library services. So it's definitely nothing to sneeze at, for sure. Just a quick note about our member levy. So the member levy is set by the board, the Shinnecock Library Board, and in order for that levy to take effect, it has to be approved by member councils. So anytime there's a change to the levy or proposed change, it goes through our own process internally and is approved by the board, and then a memo is sent out to council saying, this is our proposed levy schedule. What do you think? And in order for that levy schedule to change to take effect, it has to be approved by 2/3 of councils representing 2/3 of the population served. So basically 27 councils have to approve it, including Lethbridge, and about 128,000, representing 128,000 people. So any questions so far? All right, actually I'll carry on. So we do have a large board. It's a one member, one vote model. So our board is actually 42 members. We have, because of that, a lot of the work is done in committees. So we have kind of a standard roster of standing committees that do a lot of the work. So any policy or proposal that comes to the board has been looked at in committee, and then by the executive committee, and then the board. So by the time it comes to the board, a good number of people have had their eyes on it, and so we found it to be a pretty effective way to develop our policies and our processes and whatnot. So in terms of the services that we offer, So a lot of the services that we offer your community they tend to be kind of behind the scenes, sort of supportive services, or ones where it makes sense from economies of scale, or it just makes sense to collaborate. So one of the biggest ones is bibliographic services. Of all of the aside from salaries, the biggest chunk of our budget involves purchasing library materials. And on a typical year, it's about $800,000 to $900,000 that we purchase on behalf of member libraries at Shinnecourt. So that means that if Jay has a book that she wants to order, she doesn't have to go to Amazon or to a wholesaler or whatever and try and hunt down the best price. She just sends us the title, and we have staff that are dedicated to just looking and finding those items. So we have established relationships with wholesalers, and just by virtue of the amount of money that we spend, we get the maximum discount on those materials. So it basically makes your local library board's collection budget go about 40% further than it would if you were purchasing on your own. And then it means that the items come to Shinnecourt, and we make them shelf ready. We add them to the catalog, we put the stickers on them, and then we put them in the van and deliver them out to the library so that they're available to the public as soon as they arrive. We also run an extensive network, so all of the libraries are networked over the SuperNet, and we run a bunch of different services over the SuperNet. The photo there is from an earlier iteration of our server closet. It's we have a pretty robust network. So we run the circulation system, so the check-in and check-out system over the internet or over our network. We provide email services, file storage services, firewalls, threat protection, all that kind of stuff, anything that we can network. We provide also the websites for the libraries, and as well as a help desk. So if a computer goes down in the library, Jay doesn't have to try and find someone locally to fix it and pay out of pocket for that. She can just call one of our technicians, and they'll come out and repair it on site. Or she can send the computer into us, and we'll fix it and then send it back out. We also have 3 librarians, and their whole job is just to help the libraries with any aspect of library operations. So whether it's collection development, what material should I be adding to the collection? How can I maximize my collection budget? What should I be withdrawing? What should I be taking off the shelves? Policy development, board management. We have consultants that will help with all of that kind of stuff. And digital services. So as you know, a lot of people are reading online these days. So on your iPad or an e-reader or what have you. You can purchase those things for yourself, or you can get them from the library now as well. So if you have a library card, you can just go to the Shinnecourt website or the Claresholm Library website and download those materials and read them for free. So those are expensive services. So by working together, we can offer that to every library user within our service area. And so it's not only reading material, we have online courses, streaming video, language learning software, all kinds of stuff. All available free of charge to the end user through the library. And the big one is delivery. So the libraries have agreed to share the resources. So if you live in Claresholm, the book that you want is in Fort Macleod, you just place a hold on it. Our vans will go to Fort Macleod. I mean, they wouldn't make just a special trip. We have regular routes that they go around. We have 2 vans that go out every day on different routes, and they'll pick up that item in Fort Macleod and bring it to Claresholm. It arrives here. The patron gets a notification saying your hold is in. They come in and pick it up, and then they can return the item here as well, and then we take it back to its home library. We've also been getting into doing some programming in the libraries. So programming is a very labor-intensive and sometimes expensive thing to offer to the community. So we've been developing some programs that we develop centrally and then offer it in the libraries all across the system. So I think that's a growth area for us. COVID really threw libraries for a loop, for sure. It's an inherently public building and a public service, and we didn't really know how to handle this new virus, but I'm pleased to say that people are coming back to the library. Our van delivery is a good indicator of how many people are using the library. Typically, it's about 800,000 items or 850,000 items that will move around the system in a given year. In 2020, it dropped down to basically half that, but in 2021, we're well on our way back with 720,000 items moving around. We've also been exploring a bit of automation in library services. So we have a couple of communities that don't have local library service, namely Waterton and Picani. So we got some grants to put a book locker in those communities. A book locker is not by any means a replacement for full-fledged library service, but if you live in Picani and you have issues getting to Fort Macleod or Pincher Creek, to get your materials, we will, you can place a hold and we'll deliver those items to those book lockers, and you just scan your library card and the little door pops open and you can take your book and it checks it out to you automatically. So it's kind of like a book vending machine, but but libraries, so it's free. Yeah, so we're just, seeing with COVID an increase in the online services. Some of the stuff I've already mentioned, so we're working on a new 4-year budget and levy schedule. So the board will be looking at that at the August meeting. We'll be developing it over the next couple of months. And then, so keep an eye out for a memo. Assuming there's a change to the member levy, keep an eye out for a memo probably late August. And yeah, so that's what we're looking forward to, seeing what, how to support libraries as we recover from the pandemic over the next several years. So I think that is it, unless you have any questions or comments or.
Thanks. Anyone? I think I only just came across, it was just a simple question. The library boards, what do they pay for fees? Do they pay per capita as well, or is it just a base fee?
Yes, the library board is $357 per capita. And that number hasn't changed. That number hasn't changed since I've been at Shinnecock, which is since 2007. And the reason for that is, if we ask the library boards to pay more, what are they going to do? They're going to come to you as a council and say, we need more money. And then you'll say, well, what do we need that money for? And you'll say, well, to pay Shinnecock. And then you're like, well, we're also paying Shinnecock. And so it kind of looks like a double dipping thing. So that number hasn't changed, and I don't think it will change. And the other thing I should mention about that is, with that $357 per capita, $2 per capita of that is considered book allotment. So it's basically money that the library board has to spend on library materials. And what that does is it means that every member library board basically has some money to spend on materials in proportion to their population. Because the temptation might be for a library board to say, well, we don't really need to buy books because we can just use the stuff from the other libraries around the system. But this way, it's money that they can everybody's buying new materials basically in proportion to their population.
Okay, just one follow-up, sorry. For Begunny and Waterton, for the self-service, do they pay the same fees, or do they have for their little library lockers?
The Waterton doesn't have a library board, so they don't pay, they pay the municipal fee, but they pay a rural services fee, which is a smaller amount, but they don't get as many services with that. Begunny is a little different because as a First Nation, under the Libraries Act, there's no way for a First Nation to form a library board or to get a library operating grant. So the province has actually been pretty forward thinking, and they have basically provided Shinnecock what the fee would be if it was, if they could form a library board. So we do get funding from the province for that, but both of those devices were actually funded through grants. So we weren't, we didn't want to take money that we receive from our member libraries and open a service over here. So it's basically, it's kind of cost neutral for the system because of the grants.
Thank you. Councillor Kettles.
Robin, you mentioned you're building on your 3-year plan moving forward. What do you see as kind of the 2 or 3 main points that you guys are looking to do? I mean, we're obviously moving beyond bricks and mortar for a lot of your library services. Is it more of that, or can you just kind of highlight a couple of the ideas that you folks are thinking about moving forward 2 or 3 years?
Sure. So what we're fairly early in the needs assessment process, but what we're hearing from the libraries is they really want people back in the library. So one thing I was a little concerned about during COVID is that people's habits would change, and that after a year or so of not going to the library, they might find other ways to satisfy those needs in their life. So we really want to find ways to promote the library, to remind people that the library is still there, that it's still a great service, and that it has something to enhance their life. And so that's going to be a big emphasis, I think, is either incentives, social media, marketing, promoting, and that kind of thing. And I think a big sort of corollary to that will be programming. So offering some cool stuff, like an actual reason to go to the library. So for young people, young adults, seniors, all kinds of programming to draw people back in. So I think that's going to be the big thing for sure.
Councillor Sloshberger.
21 million in-person visits to libraries in Alberta. In-person visits, 21 million.
Is that pre-COVID, during COVID,
Pre-COVID.
pre-COVID?
Yep.
Did that number drop, do you know, through
Yep.
COVID?
Boy,
By what?
I don't know. They don't
Oh.
tell you that.
Unfortunately,
No, I would just
Yeah.
be curious, just to see, right, to
Pre-COVID,
see.
We had 33,000, 2019, last year we only had 16,000,
Sorry, 2019, you had how many?
33,000.
And in
Last year we
two,
only had 16,000.
16, and that was 2021? Or,
Yes.
so,
We were hit really hard by COVID with people coming in. We were closed for several months during both those years.
do you see those
Right.
numbers starting to pick up?
Yes.
Yeah?
yeah, and in terms of, I have some stats here in terms of checkouts. So in 2022, there were about 34,000 items checked out from the Claresholm Library. And about 12 of those came from other libraries, just as a sort of a little extra stat there. In 2020, it was 24,000. So that's basically from 2020 to 2021, a 40% increase. Yeah, so those numbers, we're kind of seeing a lot of our stats going up pretty significantly, like 40% increase, 50%. So we're getting closer to pre-COVID levels, but not quite there yet. So, yeah, it's.
With time.
But I mean, it's true. Libraries are extremely well used in Alberta, and unfortunately, the most recent stats we have for the entire province are from 2018. They're always a few years behind, frustratingly, on getting those stats published, but we do have the 2018 now, and yeah, that's the most recent we have. So.
Does anyone else have any questions? Well, thank you so much, Robin, for coming and presenting to us. I'm sure I might have questions later on, but I might just shoot you an
Sure.
email if that's
Yep,
okay.
you bet,
or-
yep. Everybody has a copy of my card there, so if you have any questions, feel free to send them my way or send them through Tony or, yeah, and congrats on your new digs. I didn't know that you had built this, and I drove out the other road
Couldn't find
there,
us,
and
eh?
there was just,
Staff for that, because I told her specifically to tell you.
oh,
This was already
yeah. She put it in the invitation, so I looked up the address, and I was like, oh, that's not the same spot, but,
Where did they
and I've driven
go?
by here like many times in the last little while too, but, so. Yes, of course, yes, yeah.
You guys have your time travel, you build this go on.
Anyway, yes, thanks again.
Once again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Okay. All right, moving on. Another delegation. Gregory Harriman?
Harriman, yes.
Okay, and Associates. Abe? Terrible with names. Sorry.
So this is our accounting firm that did the audit is going to present the financial statements for 2021.
Sorry, I just have to log in here. Thank you very much for having me. I'm Scott Benedega, a manager at Gregory Harriman and Associates, and in charge of the audit. The partner on the audit is Erin Gregory. She's on maternity leave right now. She's still working, but some of these things she can't do, so I'm here in her place to present the statements. I'm going to present a slideshow behind me. It's going to touch on some of the higher ends of the statements. I've included paper copies with Blair of the slideshow, and the financial statements and management letter that I will be discussing have been provided already as well.
So I just want to start off and say thank you for giving us the opportunity to prepare the audit this year, and for the staff and all their help throughout it. It was very good. I think most of you have gone through a copy of the financial statements and in detail, and so tonight I'm going to be reviewing the highlights as I noted before. Overall, once again, the audit with the town went very well, and we've issued a clean audit report. On the financial statements, there's an actual audit report on pages 2 and 3, and part of that is the wording that the statements are fairly and appropriately presented in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. That's always what we're looking for, so that's great. Moving right in, we're going to start with the statement of financial position, and we'll look at the financial assets, which are economic resources the municipality owns or controls that will be used to discharge liabilities. As at December 31st, 2021, financial assets totaled $6.46 million. In comparison to 2020, this is an $80,000 increase. This is mainly due to an increase in the cash and GIC investment accounts from the prior year, just cash account. Of the $3.2 million in cash you can see there, $1.2 relates to deferred revenue and is restricted in future use. Going there, we'll go to liabilities, which includes deferred revenue, that you'll see. Liabilities decreased by $1.2 million to $7.7 million total. This is due in part to the payments made on long-term debt of $429,000. Accounts payable and accrued liabilities decreased by $440,000. And this was due to the clearing of the final costs of this building that were on the balance sheet as of 2020. Deferred revenue decreased by $321,000 from $1.49 million to $1.17 million. And what that $1.17 million means there is it's been grants that have been received in the year, but were not spent on their required use. And until those projects have the money spent on them, they're held here, and they'll be recognized as revenue once that happens. Overall, as you can see, the net financial debt decreased from $2.4 million in the prior year to $1.2 million in the current year. Net financial debt is the difference between financial assets and liabilities and represents the financial assets the village has left over after it has discharged its liabilities. The town is in a net financial debt position, which people often misinterpret, thinking it indicates the village does not have enough assets to cover liabilities. However, long-term debt is included in here. You can see it at $5.7 million right there. It was $6.1 the prior year. And this will be paid over the next 30 years. This isn't something that's going to be due next year or anything like that. And in fact, if we just take any portion that doesn't relate to next year's out, you would actually be in an asset position of approximately $4.2 million. So what I mean there is we're showing $5.7 million of principal amount of long-term debt that needs to be paid. Next year, it's approximately $300,000 that is required to be paid. So if you decrease that to more of a for-profit financial statement look, that this was what we were required to pay next year, you would have a net financial asset of $4.2 million rather than a $1.2 million net financial debt. And I think that's important to note. Moving on to non-financial assets. These are assets that don't provide resources to discharge liabilities, but are used to deliver government services, which include items such as infrastructure. The town's non-financial assets are mainly made up of tangible capital assets, tangible capital assets with a balance of $33 million and include items such as land, roadways, sidewalks, water and sewer, building, vehicles, and equipment. As you can see in the current year, tangible capital assets have increased by $861,000 due to the additions. Just wanted to illustrate a few of the additions and the work that's being done here. Over $1 million in sewer and lagoon transfer structures, close to $400,000 in Saskatchewan Crescent paving, $367,000 for the 2nd Street water projects, $317,000 for vehicles and the Olympia ice resurfacer, and $184,000 for the multi-use building landscaping. I just want to take this time to note that during the year, there was asset disposals of $43,000. This was the old administration sorry, I should watch what I say there. The net book value of $43,000 worth of assets was disposed of during the year, and that was the old administration building, and proceeds received were $390,000. So after we amortize an asset each year, you get the net book value after a year, so that asset had depreciated to a point of about $40,000 of value, and it was sold during the year. As well as amortization decreased it by $1.8 million during the year. And what that is when you have capital assets that are going to last multiple years and provide services for those years, you don't expense it all at once, because that's not truly how it would be. So you amortize it over its lifespan. And in this case, of all the assets you had, $1.8 million was expensed during the year. This just shows you the total of your financial assets, your liabilities, as well as the non-financial assets. And at the very bottom, it brings you to the accumulated surplus. And I just wanted to bring to your attention that it had increased from $30 million last year to $32 million in the current year. Next up is the revenue on the statement of operations. The total revenue increased from $7.9 million in 2020 to $8.3 million in 2021. The largest variation from the budget was due to user fees and sales of goods, which is the second line down there. This is due to changes in the water and sewer billings to include a flat rate charge plus a consumption charge. At the time of the budget, it was difficult to know how this would change consumption and how that would affect the overall net revenue. This next slide shows the total operating expenses for 2021 at $8.36 million, which is an $850,000 increase when compared to the prior year. However, when you look at the budgeted amounts compared to the actual amounts, they're very close to what you guys expected and budgeted for during the year. To complete the statement of operations, this next slide shows there's a shortfall of revenue over expenses before other of $21,934. The other section, totaling $2,074,000, includes government transfers for capital, which are grants received and spent on capital projects. In the prior year, the balance included contributions of $219,000 for assets donated in the year as well. This leaves us with an excess of revenue over expenses of $2,500,000. And as you can see, this is what brings the accumulated surplus from $30 million in the prior year to $32 million in the current year. Next, I'll go through some of the municipal indicators that we look at as part of the audit and that municipal affairs reviews. These are not part of the financial statements, but we wanted to provide this information to you as we thought you'd find it useful. These indicators review how the town is doing using various calculations, as well, municipal affairs uses these indicators based on their benchmarks to determine if the municipality has any trouble areas. We have calculated some of these indicators for this purpose, but also to compare the results with other towns in Alberta with similar populations. The comparative information is from 2020, as municipal affairs has not released 2021 yet. They're still in process. Looking at this sheet, and this is what municipal affairs actually provides, and it's nice to see. It's preferably you want everything in green, and that means that nothing's been triggered or nothing's low. But in this case, the only indicator that created an issue was infrastructure age calculation. And this is the amortized value of tangible capital assets as a percentage of original cost. Really what that means is it's what your assets are, what we're saying they're worth, that net book value, compared to their original cost when they were purchased. So how much have they been amortized and decreased over the years? The calculation is triggered when the book value is less than 40% of the original cost. Now I'll say that municipal affairs does review this, but they're looking for multiple triggers and things like that. So with this one being a trigger, it's not something that's going to cause any issues or have them come out and do anything like that. I wanted to talk about it in a little bit more depth about how it works. So when it's under 40% of the total original cost, it's considered triggered for municipal affairs. In 2020, that was 32.89%. And in 2021, it rose slightly to 32.95% with some new additions and things of that nature. The main reason this is in a lower range is due to the amortization rates the town has adopted are relatively high, and that's from many prior years ago. So the goal is to always try and pick amortization rates that are going to capture what the net book value and the value of your assets are in the future and as it goes down. This can be pretty tough with a municipality because a lot of your assets are infrastructure, and it's tough to place a value on what a road would be, sidewalks would be, and things like that 15 years down the road. But your amortization tends to be, this is the length that we think of the life of the asset will be, so that at the end of this period, it will be zero value on our financial statements, and it'll also probably need to be replaced. Yeah?
This is 2020 information. Wouldn't this building alone materially affect that?
It doesn't, unfortunately. So 2021 is that 32.95%. It doesn't materially affect it, as this building it's relatively expensive, but the majority of your assets, there's $100 million in cost of tangible capital assets. Just about 80% of that is in roads, sewer, sidewalks, all of that infrastructure that's been around for a long time. Now, the main thing that tends to increase the livelihood of this would be building, either like redoing roads, or even in a lot of cases what we see in some growing towns is that you're building new ones. And so you add those millions of dollars to your base, and it, in essence, buoys it up a little bit. Now, what's happened is there's some assets that have been amortized nearly to zero, or a net book value that's relatively low, but still have a value a bit higher than that. But that's just the accounting process. It's never going to be, unfortunately, exact. It's an estimate. We outlined it in the financial statements that it is an estimate, but that is part of it. The growth of your infrastructure with the roads and those ideas, the sewer, water, things of that nature, tend to really drive this up, as more so than buildings and equipment and things of that nature. I did want to point out the bottom of this slide has investment in infrastructure at 2.12. And what investment in infrastructure is it indicates new investment in capital assets compared to the amortization for the year. So I noted that there was 1.78 million, just about 1.8 million in amortization. With an investment in infrastructure of 2, that means you're spending 2 times that on new assets. And I actually did the stats for similar population towns in this area, and the median for those were 1.91. So as much as that percentage is a little bit lower, and it's under the 40% that we'd like to see it at, or municipal affairs would like to see it at, you are still investing in infrastructure, you are still building and doing things of that nature, and that will help increase it. And unfortunately, it takes time to do. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and I think I briefly hit on it earlier, is the net debt position of the town. It went from a net debt of 2020 of 2.4 million to 1.2 million in 2021. The town has a higher net debt balance when compared to the median value of other areas. It's about 2.4 million is what I found with similar position financial assets. So that would be about a 3.6 $1 million difference between the two. But what I really do want to point out, and I will just kind of go back to it so we can see it in total here, is the net debt is net financial debt is in the middle of this, and it's that 1.2 million negative and 2.4 million negative on this slide. It really doesn't include all those assets that we've been talking about, and it does include, unfortunately, the long-term debt as a negative. So the debt is decreasing it, but the debt is actually related to those long-term assets which aren't included in it. So as you pay that debt down, and the whole point of using that debt to purchase and to supply infrastructure for the municipality is to continue to gain revenue in that way. And so as you pay that debt down, you'll slowly see your net debt decrease and eventually into hopefully a net asset area. But just on overall, in the last year, going from a 2.4 to $1.2 million change is quite good. So finally, I just wanted to touch on reserves, and this kind of has to do with the capital assets as well. Reserves are what's being saved are restricted internally by the council to be used on future purchases, and they're broken into many different categories, but two main ones in that they fall into is operating and capital. As you can see, 2020 had 2.4 million in reserves with 2 million in capital. And in 2021, it increased to 3.1 million with 2.8 million in capital, meaning that 2.8 million has been restricted for the future use in capital purchases, which again is only going to help that investment in infrastructure that we discussed. Looking at median reserves in similar population municipalities, they're at approximately 4,187,000. So it's a little bit lower, but it's going in the right direction, and it's getting closer to the other towns that are like it. Overall, the town appears to be in good financial condition, and based on the statements and the indicators we reviewed, with really the only one, and we have a pretty good idea of what's going on there with the infrastructure age, you're in a great spot, and you're making strides to be in a better one. If there's any questions about the financial statements, I can take them now, or about my presentation.
Any questions? No?
I did want to touch on just one other item, is that when we do the financial statements, we do a management letter. And the management letter is really to look at some of the things that don't affect the financial statements and the numbers directly, but are recommendations that we think that the municipality or the town of Claresholm can grow on, and we only found one this year, and it was regarding the current policy outlining the funding criteria for financial assistance to community groups and organizations does not address controls related to the application and reporting for operational grants paid out by the town of Claresholm. So at one point in time, when organizations in the municipality were looking for funding or for charitable donations and things of that nature, there was no policy regarding the application or the review of how the use of funds were used. And we just recommend that a policy is updated to address the application and reporting processes for the funds provided to nonprofit community organizations to ensure the responsible use of town funds. And I think management has already taken a step towards that. If you want to speak on it, or it's...
Yeah, so just as discussed with you previously, this is a policy that this council did ask to look at and review late in 2021, and a policy was passed in January of 2022 regarding that. And so we do have a policy in place around that now. It might still need some tweaks as we work through some things on the actual carrying out of that policy, but it's definitely something we are already looking at.
Great. All right, that completes my presentation.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, yeah. Explains a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Moving on, action items, request for decision, 2021 reserves transfer. Abe?
Sure, I'll briefly introduce this, and I'll step aside to Blair if there's any questions. But this is an RFD for the reserve transfers that the Audit and Finance Committee reviewed at the last meeting last week. Blair?
Sure. So basically, just as discussed in the Audit and Finance Committee meeting last week, these are the different reserve transfers, both that were included in budget, in the 2021 budget, as well as any transfers or reserves that Council had wanted to make with the 2021 actuals. So this includes a number of different items there. So transfers from operational reserves in the amount of $158,000 and change, which was primarily for helping to fund the remaining debt repayment on the recreation loan that we had. That is now repaid fully in 2021. There was also some other reserves approved in the budget for new virtual servers for the administration for our servers, carry forward of some 2020 surpluses into the 2021 fiscal year to finish some completed projects from 2020. Those included some projects with economic development and the museum. Transfers into operational reserves in the amount of $128,723. This includes reserve funds for future bulk gravel purchases. So we put money aside each year for that, so that we're only doing those purchases in large quantities every few years versus smaller quantities every year, get better pricing that way and whatnot. And we reserve portions of that each year just so that it leaves the budget annually more stable versus having a big spike in the budget every 3 years or whatever for that purchase. There's also some carry forward of unutilized 2021 budget amounts into the 2022. That included for the policing costs. So with the policing costs, the province invoices on their fiscal year, which is April to March. Our fiscal year is January to December. So there's always a bit of an adjustment there to match those up. And then there was also some economic development projects incomplete in 2021, as well as seniors drop-in center fire panel replacement that was booked in 2021 but not completed until early 2022. So some funds carried forward for that as well. And then some of the general surpluses that we had in 2021 carried forward for primarily just into general operating reserve to cover items that might come up that are unexpected. Transfers from capital reserves in the amount of $634,000 and change. This included utilizing reserves for the water and sewer capital projects included in 2021. So this was primarily the lagoon holding cell upgrades, as well as the 2nd Street rehab project and SCADA device communications for the water treatment plant. It also included purchase of a Bylaw vehicle, as well as siding for the kids zone building, and some for the off-leash dog park fencing. Those completed in 2021. Transfers into capital reserves this year of $1.4 million and change. This is primarily surpluses in, I should say budgeted surpluses as well as some additional surpluses that we had in the water and sewer utilities to save for future infrastructure upgrades. There was also, let's see here, budgeted reserves put away for other future capital purchases such as fire truck, bylaw vehicle, and recreation infrastructure, and transfers for arena advertising into revenue for future arena upgrades. And then there was about $24,000 of interest earned on our reserve funds that was also transferred back into reserves. So those any income earned on those reserve funds goes back into reserves as well, versus swallowed up into just general operating. So those are basically what occurred with reserves this year, both out of and into reserves, and just looking for motions from council to approve those reserve transfers.
All right. Any questions?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councillor Schlossberger for the transfer out of reserves funds, or to transfer unrestricted surplus funds? First one? Out of? Out of. All right. Moved by Councillor Schlossberger. Question?
Moved by Councillor Schlossberger to transfer out of reserve funds for 2021 operational capital purposes in the amount of $792,716 for the year ended December 31st, 2021 as follows. Transfers from operating reserves, general $46,401, debt reduction $51,213, aquatic $10,960, policing $18,433, museum $21,300, Planning and Development, $9,708. Transfers from capital reserves, general, $79,574. Water and sewer, $503,447. Parks and Pathways, $14,350. Enforcement vehicle, $36,116. Museum, $1,214.
Any further discussion with this? Questions, comments? All in favor? Motion passed. Looking for a second motion to transfer the 2021 unrestricted surplus funds. Motion by Councillor Carlson. Question?
Moved by Councillor Carlson to transfer 2021 unrestricted surplus funds of $1,554,501 to reserves for the year ended December 31st, 2021 as follows. Transfers to operating reserves, general, $56,259, policing costs, $28,030, economic development, $33,331, trust account, $488, office, $273, fill dirt, $10,335, cemetery, $7. Transfers to capital reserves, general, $28,623, arena, $21,182, recreation, $24,822, fire, $20,907, parks and pathways, $434, water and sewer, $1,142,518, land development, $165,428, garbage and recycling equipment, $12,206, acreage assessment, $387, Tamarack subdivision, $239, playground rehabilitation, $475, enforcement vehicles, $62, tax recovery land, $113, and cemetery, $8,382.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Passed. Moving on to request for decision audited financial statements. Abe or Blair? Blair.
So each year, council must pass a motion to accept the audited financial statements for the year. So in this case, for December 31st, 2021. Annually, we also must pass a motion to appoint the town's auditor. We still have one more year on our current contract with Gregory Harriman and Associates. So just looking for motions on both those.
Would anyone like to make the motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the audited financial statements as presented.
Motion by Councillor Zimmer. Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to accept the audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2021 as presented.
Questions, comments, concerns? All in favor? Passed. We're looking for a motion to appoint Gregory Harriman Associates as the town clerksome auditor.
I will make that motion to appoint them.
Motion by Councillor Cutler. Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to appoint Gregory Harriman and Associates LLP as the town of Claresholm auditor for the 2022 fiscal year.
Questions, comments, concerns? All in favor? Passed.
Scott's got the job, he's out.
Moving on. Press release, Town of Claresholm receives federal support. Abe?
So the town was successful in a grant application to the Community Facility Enhancement Program. And this is the official press release. We were just kind of, we wanted to tell everybody about it a few months ago. We found out at the end of January, but partnering with the federal government on this grant, we had to wait until they were ready to make the announcement. So we've been given the green light. So that grant, $377,250 will go towards Amundsen Park redevelopment, and specifically the pavilion area. Generally, the pavilion, for the most part, the pavilion area. Yeah, and as we know, we're working on grant for the accessibility portion of the trails and the lighting right now, and we have already received some funding for the playground, which is under construction currently. So
That's really exciting.
Took some pictures of it today.
I drove by today.
Do you guys have any questions in regards to this?
It's exciting.
It is exciting.
Thank you, Government of Canada.
We can take that for information at this time and move on. I need to get my eyes checked. Correspondence. Town of Fox Creek. Abe?
Fox Creek has issued some correspondence to, primarily to the Alberta Utilities Commission, but also to other municipalities throughout the province regarding rising utility costs, and they're just requesting that the Utilities Commission look into rising utility costs and particularly fees on top of the actual usage fees of the utilities. So similar to some previous correspondence council had at the last meeting.
Any questions in regards to this? Anyone has anything to add? We can take it for information at this time. Moving on, correspondence, National Police Federation. Abe?
National Police Federation has issued correspondence and a call to action to municipalities throughout the province regarding the province's plan to have a provincial police force. They've attached some correspondence. If council is interested, they can put their name on. Essentially, the correspondence is asking the provincial government to stop their efforts of investigating a provincial police force and to improve current, and to take the money that they're planning to spend in that area and put it towards improving current policing services, to reduce response times and address rural crime by increasing the number of RCMP officers within communities, improve social services to address the root causes of crime, expand police and crisis teams, work with communities to provide targeted social supports, and increase resources within the justice system as well. I connected with Alberta municipalities today to see if they had come across this. They have come across this call to action. They are going to be discussing this at their executive board, but they haven't talked about it yet. As we know, Alberta municipalities is actively working on issues with the provincial police plans and rollout, and have had webinars and are developing questions and I guess study guides for councils. So they'll be looking into this call for action shortly, but I don't have an answer on where they stand on that just yet.
Further questions or comments with this? Take it for information until we know what AM is working towards. Moving on, correspondence, political studies. Abe?
So just an invitation to partake in some academic research, council. There's a researcher here who is emailing municipal councils across the province. Just looking to understand why councillors run for office. Looks like there's a number of questions in the survey. I think they did this in 2017 as well, and there are ethics considerations. They've detailed that in this correspondence. Your identity will be protected, but I have forwarded the link to you all if you want to participate. I don't see any harm in that. I would encourage it, actually. Any questions on that?
Take it for information and encourage everyone to complete the survey. Moving on, correspondence, Barrier-Free Alberta. Abe?
Correspondence from Barrier-Free Alberta, and they're asking that to draw attention to National Accessibility Week. And so they requested this correspondence comes on the agenda. That is May 29th to June 4th. And they're looking for elected officials to sign on to the support form as an elected official. Possibly arrange a 30-minute presentation to discuss how Alberta can become a barrier-free province. And lastly, what we're doing now is to share this information at the council meeting.
questions or comments with this? I just have one thing. If we, because do not declare any weeks, would we still be able to arrange a 30-minute presentation regardless of us setting aside a week for them? I just think that the 30 minutes might be, even for myself, I would be curious to see what their thoughts are on it. Anyone else?
That'd be good information.
Mhm.
We could just set it up as a town hall type of thing.
Yeah. If possible.
We can connect with them and have them do a presentation.
If we're all happy with that, can move on. Correspondence, Grantham and District Canada Day Society. Abe?
Okay, so correspondence from the Grantham and District Canada Day Society, just announcing their celebrations for the upcoming year. And do we normally send someone out to that?
We usually send a float.
Okay. Normally, we send a float to neighboring municipalities, Grantham being one of them.
Do you guys want, if council wants to participate with that
I
float?
think last year I went down there and participated in some of their activities and was part of their cake cutting. I think that was maybe it was 3 years ago, the first year maybe. But the more support we can give them, I like the idea of how we coordinate with the local areas between us and Grantham, between their fair days and our Winterfest and their Canada Day celebrations. I think it's something we should enhance and keep going and moving forward. So I would like to attend on behalf if nobody else wants to.
I recommend Councillor Cutler drive the parade, in the parade with the float.
Like drive the float?
Yes.
Or like sit on the float?
No, take the float.
Do I need a driver's abstract for that?
Yep.
Somebody else want to drive? No, I'm just kidding. That would be fine, yeah, if we don't have a driver and stuff, yep,
Yes,
yep.
we, because of
I know
the
we should-
pandemic, we
yep.
haven't really
Reach out, yeah, no, I will,
set up anybody, so if you want to do it, then.
I'll take the
it's all
float.
yours. Okay.
I will come and cheer you on from the sidelines.
I will not. Are you from the side?
Well,
I like it.
I usually take the little
Yeah,
one
no,
out
I
to
think
those.
it's something we should continue to support between the two of us. We like sharing our festivities, so I'll be more than happy to.
Did I just sign up for this?
I'll stay here.
From the sidelines.
From the sidelines, okay.
Well,
I was like, I don't know if I want to get into a vehicle with him with no driver's abstract, in all honesty.
And then we came back for it. I was like, no, I did. That's what I was talking
You don't need a motion for that at all or anything, just.
Do we normal? I don't
I
think
don't
so.
think so.
What date is that?
Oh my goodness.
July 4th. Cancel whatever you had planned.
Don't have much planned on July 1st, July 4th? Yeah, okay.
Moving on.
Not America.
Correspondence, Claire's Home Local Press and your dollar store with more. Abe?
So these two groups are planning a walking fundraiser. In the past, they have done a zombie walk around Halloween time, I believe, to raise money and funds. This is the 6th annual walk. It's going to be changed this year to the springtime, of course. It's not Halloween. And they're calling it Heroes. They're raising money for extracurricular activities for youth. And so they're requesting to have use of Patterson Park and permission to use the arena in the event that the weather is not cooperating for their walk. They also would like a little bit of help from town staff regarding barricades and participation from the town bylaw and fire department and council if they're available. The walk takes place 10 a.m. on, someone help me, May 14th.
Where do you see that on
Right
there?
at the top.
Right under regarding Heroes for
Oh.
Walk on May 14th.
I was reading the actual. My apologies. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I have enough superhero cakes for all of us.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, I think this would be a really good council event for everyone to attend. sorry, they're looking for permission. Sorry, we're distracted.
It's all good.
I'm looking up my outfit.
So, we'd like a motion. Corinne has a drafted motion here she can read to you if you're ready for it.
Yeah, ready?
I don't know who would like to make the motion. Is that you, Mike?
No,
I will.
Counselor Meister, question?
Take it off. I know you go work it. I can work it.
So I have moved by Councillor Meister to allow the Clarkson Local Press and Your Dollar Store with More to hold a Heroes Walk in Patterson Park on Saturday, May 14th, 2022, with the Clarkson Marina as a bad weather backup venue that can be used free of charge if needed, and to provide barricades to mark the route.
Any questions or comments with that? All in favor? Passed. Moving on, request for decision, museum fire truck. Abe?
So this is a request to transfer one of the two fire trucks that are down at the museum to a resident in the surrounding area. Contrary to what it says in the RFD, the truck is not from the 1400s, it's from the 1940s.
I was gonna ask. Come on. Close enough.
I missed that.
I missed it. Wow. So, and perhaps the most important note on this request for decision is that the truck that we're proposing to transfer has not been received into accession. The one that has been is the one from the 1920s. And essentially, the museum is looking for some room for a World War II flight simulator that's been refurbished and is coming back to town here. And we have looked throughout our storage facilities in town. We don't have any. So the library board went ahead and connected with Doug Leeds, who is a former board member. Pardon?
The museum board.
Thank you. The museum board reached out to Doug Leeds, who is a former board member and who has the capabilities of maintaining the truck. We have a transfer agreement attached for your information. Essentially, we're looking for a motion that the town transfer ownership of the 1949 Chevy Brickell Seagrave pump to Doug Leeds as per the attached transfer agreement. A few details of that transfer agreement is basically it won't be used for operational purposes. There's an agreement in there that they won't be trying to run it. It's a dollar transfer as is condition, and that the recipient will not hold the town liable for any legal issues that might arise. So any thoughts, comments, concerns from council?
I think he's trying to start a little museum out there. I don't know if
No better person to give it to,
that's,
to hold for us.
Did I mention that if he wants to get rid of it, the town has the
Right.
first right of refusal?
First dibs on it.
would anyone like to make this motion? I'll make it. Motion by Councillor Meister. Question?
Moved by Councillor Meister to transfer ownership of the 1949 Chevrolet Brickell Seagrave pumper to Doug Leeds as per the proposed transfer agreement.
Further questions or comments? All in favor? Motion passed. Moving on, request for decision, Tamarack lot price review. Abe?
So about a year ago, these Tamarack lots, which are town-owned lots, were reduced in price. $7,000 for the R1 lots and $5,000 reduction for the R4 lots. And there was a note in the developer's calendar that this was supposed to come back to council in a year to see if council wanted to reduce those prices again. So we have some information here from our development officer regarding each of these lots and their prices. They're currently listed below the assessed value. There have been a few little nibbles, but it doesn't sound like any serious buyers on those lots over the last year. So at this point in time, just asking if you would like to keep the pricing as is, if you would like to reduce the lots, again, by, say, 5,000 and 7,000 again, or if you would like administration to connect with an agent and develop a strategy to actually sell these lots.
Is this possibly something that can be passed on to the ad hoc committee as part of their
Their mandate?
Thank you. Something for them to review to see, since that's coming up soon.
One of the items I'd like to know from administration is how, I feel these have been available since I've moved to town. How many years have these been on the market for or available? I'm tempted to put out the notion of actually putting these out for a sealed bid auction with a stipulation of development within a certain amount of time.
So I don't know how we would proceed with that, but we could look into the details of that and
If
get
we
back
could-
to you.
If we could bring that back, yeah, if we've been sitting on this for long enough without any revenue generation off of it, and infrastructure that's aging under the ground because of it, so without property on it, you're not receiving any taxation back.
So when you say a sealed bid auction with the restrictions of building within a year of some kind of
Yes.
on-the-ground kind of thing where they get a lot for a cheap price, but yet they can start building right away?
It would be contingent on with a penalty for not.
Right.
So they'd forfeit after X number of,
Anything to stimulate some kind of production.
yeah. I wouldn't move that we take a price reduction. We could either take that back to the subcommittee being created or directly back to council next go-round. I think we need a little bit more innovative solution than sitting on our hands and waiting.
And if we reduced the price, there was no interest after that, so reducing the price again, I don't think is going to create any interest. At least by doing this, you may create some more interest.
Or the knowledge with developers that we are in the mindset of stimulating the developers to take steps within the communities.
Right.
Those are essentially, you can dig, there's water out there already. I don't think it would be take much to put sewer in, so someone could start pushing soil soon with it, but I think.
So what we can do is actually forward this, as you suggested, Mayor, to the ad hoc committee with this specific request to look into from Councilor Carlson, if that works, and then report back to council. Does that work for everybody?
I like it.
Everyone's happy with it? Do you need a motion for that, or just?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councillor Carlson. Question?
Before your questions, can I ask one more clarity question? Which ad hoc committee?
The one that will be developed.
Community development.
The community development one. Thank you.
So I have moved by Councillor Carlson to direct administration to look into the possibility of sealed bid auction regarding the Tamarack lots with the stipulation that the lots must be built on within 1 year purchase, and to have this topic discussed at the Community Development Committee level.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Passed. Request for decision, Pitch-In Canada Week. Abe?
Yeah, we have helped out with this, or participated in a Pitch-In Canada Week, which is a community-wide cleanup. We've done this in the past, previous couple of years. Looks like it was on hold, as many things were throughout COVID, but looking to pick that up again. The dates of that are April 22nd and 23rd. And we're just looking for a motion from council. We'd like to start doing that again. The cost to the municipality is quite limited. Just a few sets of gloves and general tipping fees from the garbage that we collect, which won't be a lot. Kyle will be available, the bylaw officer will be available to assist and get everybody situated on Friday, and then, which is the 22nd, and then on the 23rd, our recreation department will be able to coordinate and direct everybody to clean up throughout town. So we don't, council doesn't generally declare weeks or days, but the way the motion is written is just to approve town staff to coordinate a cleanup towards pitching Canada Days on the 22nd and 23rd.
All right. Question?
I will make that motion.
Motion by Councillor Cutler. Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to approve town staff to coordinate April 22nd and April 23rd, 2022 as Pitch in Canada Days in the town of Claresholm, where the public is encouraged to pitch in.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Passed? Opposed? Zimmer, are you for or against?
Well, I'm for.
Oh, sorry, I just didn't see your hand.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Moved. Request for direction, town speed limit. Abe?
So Councillor Meister asked that we get this on we get administration put some information on an agenda to discuss the town speed limit, possibly reducing the unposted speed limit to 40 kilometers an hour. I shouldn't say a lot, several municipalities are doing this. Calgary and Edmonton have both done this. 2021, Nanton up the road, I believe, did it in 2019. The general push in communities is for safety purposes, giving people more time to slow down, or in the event that there is an accident, it's usually less severe, right? So if council's interested in pursuing this, we do have an emergency services committee coming up in 2 days. We can forward this. That's a good group to actually kind of bounce some initial ideas off of. But at this point in time, we'll just look for direction from council on this matter.
Do it.
Councillor Schlossberger.
How many signs do we have to replace?
That was my original, when I went through this with
Good
Abe.
question. I don't know. That would be part of the research.
I like it.
I'm not opposed to research.
I have some.
I guess you would,
Signs, but
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Zimmer.
you could just not replace any of them. Take the 50s down, and anything that's unposted is assumed 40.
I'll get you a can of black paint and a brush.
You don't have to change them. If it's unposted, it's 40.
That's what the sign says coming into town, right? That's what, I don't think Nanton has put up, I went through their town, and they haven't put up any signs that say 40. It just says it's unposted, unless otherwise posted, speed limit's 40.
I think there is a couple of signs that they put up, but you're right, they haven't done a lot of extensive signs.
And-
There's one on that back road somewhere, I think, and
That's right. There's a few here and there that are just to remind people of what the speed limit is, where they tend to get going fast.
Right.
And I don't know how many there are in that regard, yeah.
So 8th Street, we'd put one on 8th Street.
to be honest, I wanted a 30-kilometer-per-hour limit. But there's
Nice try.
there's a whole bunch of global efforts that are trying to get all municipal residential roads down to 30 by the year 2030. So
I would never make it to a meeting on time ever again. So I am opposed.
I'll listen to 40, then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, some of the things I'd be curious with is like what it would be the cost to the town and who is going to be enforcing this. Like, are the RCMP on board with this? Because I feel like it's going to take a little while for the citizens to do that swap over. So,
I only travel 45, so it doesn't matter.
Councillor
I say we
Kennels.
send
I
it to
think
the
if we're gonna
committee.
do research too, there's probably some roads we can't affect, right? Like, we can't change the highway, we can't change the other highway. I don't know if we own Fifth Street or 8th Street. I don't know, like, some of that is MD, some isn't. So there'd be research that would have to be done.
Again, Nanton has all that information and research done with the highways and stuff, so I think just reaching out to them and finding out and getting more of that information to find out what the technicalities are will solve a lot of these discussions.
It should come from the Emergency Services Committee.
Exactly, for sure. Yep.
Would someone like to make this motion for the research?
I know, I rubbed my nose.
Oh.
I will make that motion.
Motion by Counselor Meister. Question?
Moved by Councillor Meister to direct administration to discuss the unposted town speed limit within town limits at the Emergency Services Committee level, to come back to council at a future meeting.
Further questions or comments? All in favor? Passed. 14, financial report, statement of operations, February 28th. Abe?
Just a recurring report, council, that we try to get to you on a regular basis regarding the town's finances. We are fairly early on in the year, but if there's anything that jumps out to you or you have any questions, we have a very capable staff here at the moment that can answer your questions.
Any questions at this time? Oh, gosh, sorry. We are looking for a motion to accept the statement of operations.
I'll make a motion to accept the income statement for February 2022.
Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to accept the consolidated statement of operations for the month ended February 28th, 2022 as presented.
Further questions, comments, or concerns? All in favor? Passed. 15, information brief, Municipal Emergency Program Report. Review report? Sorry. Abe?
Yeah, about, I guess a month ago now, we had some regional training, some emergency management training, and we had our regional, or AEMA, which is Alberta Emergency Management Association field officer, come down and conduct that training for us. And while he was here, he reviewed the town's municipal emergency program. And in that, our emergency management bylaws and different levels of training that he reviewed. The report is attached here for your review. There's a number of things you can see that he actually audited on the town, but the big ones being the bylaw, just to ensure that we have staffing trained in areas of emergency management, that we have an emergency management committee, that it's organized and appointed, that all our contact information on our emergency management plan is updated, and he met with Gary Zoba, met with Jason Hemaway, who's our Director of Emergency Management, and Tara Van Dellen, who is the Deputy Director of Emergency Management. And they passed with flying colors, and he requested, Gary, the auditor, requested that we pass this information along to council, just for their information and to the community. So that's just presented as information. We are in very good hands with the legislative compliance at the town in regards to our emergency management.
Any questions? Take it for information at this time. Moving on, information brief, Economic Developers of Alberta Awards. Abe?
Yeah, it was a good week for Claire's Home last week. Economic Developers of Alberta had their annual awards and conference, and Brady, our town economic development officer, Brady Schnell, won the Economic Developer of the Year award. And in addition to that, the town of Claresholm won a community award, and it was for the Welcoming Claresholm project, which works with the the RNIP, Rural Northern Immigration Program, to assist new residents when they land in Claresholm, and welcoming inclusive community. And specifically, it was, the award is integrating environmental, social, or governance issue into an economic development project. And so that's what the award was. And so I just, always good press for Claresholm, getting on the map. And as a matter of fact, Brady has been able to get a lot of attention for Claresholm through the RNIP program. He's delivered kind of speeches and moderated events at different online forums that you never would have thought that someone from Claresholm would be speaking to and representing. And so maybe at some point we can get some of that information to you, and kind of how far and wide the town is getting some recognition. But I think it's good to highlight.
Really exciting. Any questions? Comments? Take it for information at this time. Moving on, council committee reports.
Thanks, Councillor Schlossberger.
He's very busy representing. Thank you so much.
I had COVID for 2 weeks.
Do you have anything to comment on any of those? No. All right. Take it for information. Information brief, council resolution status. Abe?
Just the usual report, council. I don't know why it's going sideways on us here, but usual report that we bring to you to accountability document to report on our progress. Yeah. It went sideways on me. Anyway, any questions on that?
Nope.
Nope.
Take it for information at this time. And an adoption of the information items. Moved by Councillor Carlson. Question?
Moved by Councillor Carlson to adopt the information items as presented.
Questions or comments? Concerns? All in favor? Passed. Need a motion to go in camera to discuss confidential evaluations. Motion by Councillor Cutler. Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to go on camera at 8:27 p.m. for the following items. A, confidential evaluations, FOIP Section 19.
Questions, comments, concerns? All in favor? Camera off at 8:27 p.m. Camera on. Motion to come out of camera.
I would like to make a motion to come out of in camera.
Motion by Councillor Zimmer. Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to come out of in camera at 8:49 p.m.
All in favor? Camera. We're looking for a motion for these confidential evaluations. Moved by Councillor Cutler. Would you like to approve?
I would like to make the motion to appoint Councillor Schlossberger, Councillor Meister, Councillor Carlson, and Mayor Petrovic to the Ad Hoc Committee of Economic Development for the wonderful town of Claresholm.
Community Development Committee. Thank you.
Community Development of the wonderful town of Claresholm.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Cutler.
Mine sounds better.
I did. Question. I did already. Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to appoint Mayor Petrovic and Councillors Carlson, Meister, and Schlossberger to the Community Development Committee.
Any further questions or comments in regards to this? All in favor? Passed. Motion to adjourn. Motion by Councillor Carlson to adjourn. All in favor? Meeting adjourned at 8:50 p.m. Camera off.